Think Stoics are cold and emotionless? Think again. What if I told you Stoicism is actually about understanding and mastering your emotions? Not suppressing them? When most people hear the word Stoicism, their minds instantly jump to images of cold, emotionless individuals, people who completely suppress or repress their feelings. But after years of studying, writing about, and practicing Stoicism in my own life, I can confidently say that this common perception is far from the truth. Neither academic scholarship nor the lived experience of Stoics supports this stereotype. In fact, much of what people believe about Stoicism, and the myths surrounding it, are completely wrong. That's exactly what we'll explore today. One major criticism of Stoicism is the idea that it encourages suppressing your emotions. We all know that simply stuffing emotions down and pretending they don't exist is unhealthy. Sometimes this is labeled as toxic masculinity, but the Stoics themselves were absolutely not advocating for this. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, pointed out that no amount of philosophy can erase our natural human feelings. On the contrary, Stoics wrote some of the most beautiful and profound essays on grief, anger, and other emotions. Their focus was on processing these feelings, understanding where they come from, why giving yourself over to them unchecked can be harmful, and how to engage with them wisely. But they never said, just stuff it down. They knew that path leads nowhere good. At its core, Stoicism is about rationally analyzing and understanding our emotions. I would never say a Stoic is emotionless. Do they strive to be less ruled by their feelings? Absolutely. We all know that when emotions run too high, especially in important moments, they tend to cloud our judgment and lead us astray. One of the most important tools the Stoics used to manage emotions was journaling. There's a famous saying, "Paper is more patient than people." Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often wrote down his frustrations with difficult people or trying situations. Instead of unleashing his emotions on others, he poured them out on the page. The goal wasn't to suppress his emotions, but to process and understand them. The Stoics were not repressed, they simply refused to be controlled by their emotions. Their philosophy teaches us that the greatest empire anyone can rule is the empire over oneself. So, here's the crucial question. Who's truly in charge, you or your emotions? This is exactly what the Stoics challenge us to confront. Their ultimate aim was to achieve ataraxia, a serene stillness amidst the chaos of life. The world is already wild and unpredictable enough. Why add your own turmoil to the mix? One of the biggest myths about Stoicism is that Stoics were humorless. Nothing shatters this stereotype quite like the story of an early Stoic named Sippus, who reportedly died laughing. The exact joke that caused this legendary laughter is lost to history. But it's not shared as a cautionary tale. Rather, it shows that Stoics had a rich and vibrant sense of humor. They laughed heartily. Seneca famously said philosophers face two choices. They can be like Democritus, who wept over life's sorrows and frustrations, or like Heraclitus, who laughed at them. The Stoics fully understood that life can be dark, hard, and painful, and humor was a vital release from that weight. Indeed, the Stoics were funny people. Most truly wise individuals are. When you deeply grasp the nature of something, you see its absurdity, its ridiculousness, and you find the humor in it. Humor also helped Stoics avoid taking themselves too seriously. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by immense power and flattery. Humor was what kept him grounded. Seneca joked that if you learn to laugh at yourself, you will never cease to be amused. The Stoics directed this sharp humor inward. They laughed at themselves first. This is a lesson we all need to learn and cultivate. Humor for the Stoics was more than just a coping mechanism, it was a critical skill. One of the greatest misconceptions about Stoicism is that it's cold and unfeeling. The 4 core Stoic virtues, I even have them tattooed on my wrist, are courage, self-discipline, wisdom, and justice. We easily understand courage, self-discipline, and wisdom, but justice holds a profound place in their philosophy. Across Stoic writings, there is a deep and consistent emphasis on kindness, compassion, and empathy. At one point in Meditations, Marcus Aurelius admits his frustration with someone and then reflects, "But ask yourself, when have you acted like that?" Even in his earliest writings, where he speaks of how frustrating people can be, he reminds himself, "Okay, but you can't be implicated in that ugliness. Remember, you were made to work with these people. You come from the same source, and you share an affinity with them." One of the most consistent themes throughout Marcus Aurelius's writings is his profound sympathy for our connection to others and the essential nature of that bond. This deep sense of empathy reflects good character and calls us to act in ways that benefit the common good. So yes, the Stoics emphasize focusing on what we control, but empathy, our ability to understand and share the feelings of others, is something firmly within our power. Sympathy, too, is not passive, it is a conscious choice, an act of will. The Stoics practiced a powerful mental exercise known as the concentric circles. At the very center lies us, our own self-care and concerns. From there, this circle expands outward, to our family, neighbors, community, country, and eventually to all humanity. A crucial part of Stoic practice was to gradually pull those outer rings inward, extending our circle of care and concern beyond ourselves. Marcus Aurelius reminds us vividly, "What injures the hive injures the bee." We are all interconnected in this intricate web of life. You cannot allow another person to suffer injustice without it touching you in some way. Likewise, harming someone else inevitably harms yourself. This deep compassion runs like a thread throughout Stoic philosophy. The Stoics cared deeply about justice. They cared about making the world a better place. Why else would they have penned timeless works, served in public office, or devoted themselves to improving society? Of course, they cared. One of the hardest truths for many to accept about Stoicism is the idea of resignation. People often say, "I didn't get where I am by accepting things as they are." No, I pushed, I fought, I changed things. How else could progress happen if we didn't strive and resist? That is a valid point. Yet, the core of Stoicism is precisely this: focus on what you can control. We must first accept reality before we can effectively act within it. While we cannot control external events, we can control how we respond to them. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, framed it perfectly. Being a Stoic means not only to bear what is necessary but to love it, to embrace it wholeheartedly. This does not mean never trying to improve your circumstances, on the contrary. You must, but you also have to accept those things beyond your influence. So your energy is reserved for what you can truly change. Consider Marcus Aurelius's life. It was filled with death, loss, natural disasters, one crisis after another. Ancient historians note that fortune was rarely kind to him. His reign was a constant series of challenges. Yet Marcus chose not to see these as misfortunes. He declared, "I was made for this. I'm going to turn this into something meaningful." That mindset defined the man himself. He famously said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This encapsulates Stoicism perfectly. Accept what is, and then transform it into something meaningful. Rise, grow, and flourish because of the obstacles you face. This philosophy is captured in what is now known as the Stockdale paradox. Admiral James Stockdale taught that you must face your reality unflinchingly, while simultaneously believing that you will prevail and find meaning in your struggle, something so precious that you wouldn't trade it away. It is a misconception to think of Stoics as passive. Far from it. They were incredibly active agents in their lives, mastering the art of acquiescence, accepting what must be accepted, but never surrendering. Stoicism is often misunderstood as a morbid philosophy. Seneca, a major Stoic figure, wrote extensively about death, so much so that a collection of his works is titled How to Die. Naturally, all Stoics died. Mortality is the one absolute that unites us all. I personally wear a necklace engraved with Memento Mori, a reminder from Marcus Aurelius that life can end at any moment. The power of this phrase lies not in fear, but in how it guides your actions, words, and thoughts every single day. Epictetus went so far as to advise that when you tuck your child into bed at night, you should remind yourself, they may not make it until morning. This may sound dark and unsettling. Who wants to face such a thought? But for the Stoics, contemplating mortality was never meant to depress, rather, it was invigorating, a call to live intentionally and fully. Seneca explained that life isn't necessarily short, but that we waste so much of it. Strangely, we guard our money and possessions more fiercely than the one truly irreplaceable resource, time. Marcus Aurelius faced unimaginable heartache, burying several of his own children during his lifetime. Yet, through his dedication to Stoic practice, especially drawing from the teachings of Epictetus, he continually reminded himself not to rush through life or take a single moment for granted. After all, none of us truly knows how much time we have. That's why it's so vital to balance the books of life each day with intention and care. Seneca, another great Stoic, urged us, don't put things off. Don't think of death as some distant event far in the future. Instead, we should understand that death is unfolding constantly, around us and within us. Becoming intimately familiar with this reality helps guide how we live and the choices we make every day. Even on days when simply dragging yourself out of bed feels like an enormous victory. The Stoics understood that struggle. Marcus himself admitted in Meditations that sometimes he didn't want to leave the cozy warmth of his blankets. But then he reminded himself firmly, you must rise. Dante once famously said that there's no glory in staying under the covers, and Marcus knew this well. That said, comfort and purpose don't have to be at odds. Take something like my own bed, an amazing 8 sleep that my wife and I adore. It lets you control the temperature on each side, raises and lowers for comfortable reading, and even tracks your sleep patterns. Instead of a jarring alarm, it gently wakes me with a quiet vibration. The latest model, the Pod 4 Ultra, is an upgrade that heats, cools, and automatically elevates. It's clinically proven to improve sleep quality by up to an hour each night. It can even cool the bed down about 20 degrees below room temperature. Perfect for surviving the intense Texas heat waves we regularly face. If you want to check it out, head over to 8sleep.com. Now, some people dismiss Stoicism with the phrase, "Why should I care about a philosophy created by old, dead, rich white men?" But that couldn't be more wrong. Sure, Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, but he certainly wasn't the only face of Stoicism. His favorite Stoic philosopher was Epictetus, a slave from Greece. Stoicism was practiced by people across the full social spectrum of ancient Rome. It's also important to remember that the Roman Empire was vast, stretching across Africa, Britain, Greece, and the Far East. During Marcus Aurelius's reign, Rome even interacted with China's Han dynasty. Stoicism itself was born out of hardship and calamity. Its founder, Zeno, lost everything in a shipwreck and washed ashore penniless in Athens. Yet he called that loss his greatest fortune because it led him to discover the philosophy of Stoicism. Since then, Stoicism has been embraced by a richly diverse group, men and women, black and white, rich and poor, from every culture and circumstance imaginable. Practitioners have come from every walk of life, proving just how universal this philosophy truly is. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself there was no role better suited to philosophy than the one he held. But that's true for all of us, regardless of our position or situation. Whatever your life looks like, Stoicism is inclusive, it's open, accessible, and ready for you to apply it right now. This timeless relevance explains why Stoicism has endured for more than 20 centuries. It speaks to people of every walk of life, at all times, everywhere. It's truly universal. That's why Stoicism is more popular than ever, not only among men but also among women. I see it in the numbers, in the followers of my own work. It's embraced internationally, among professional athletes, parents, billionaires, and I even receive letters from prisoners. If anyone tries to tell you that Stoicism isn't for you, they simply don't understand the philosophy. If you think Stoicism isn't for you, you're falling for one of the biggest misconceptions. The Stoics were not perfect, they didn't have all the answers, but they were far more nuanced, deeper, and more human than the shallow caricatures often portrayed. So, if Stoicism even piques your interest, or if doubts have held you back, I invite you to give it a real chance. I send out a free daily email with one piece of Stoic wisdom every day. It reaches over 1 million people worldwide, the largest community of Stoics ever assembled. And I promise you, these aren't humorless, morbid, depressed, or uncaring people. No, they're ordinary people, just like you. You can sign up right now at the Stoic Journey channel. I hope to see you there.